слово представителю Республики Корея.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would also like to thank Deputy Special Coordinator Alakbaro for his comprehensive briefing. Mr. President, the Republic of Korea welcomes the release of hostages in Gaza, as well as the implementation of the ceasefire earlier this month, and commend the enormous efforts by mediating countries, the US, Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey. We also appreciate the efforts made by President Trump to promote peace in the Middle East, as shown in the comprehensive plan to end the Gaza conflict and the Trump Declaration for Enduring Peace Prosperity. 10 days ago, the entire world witnessed what political will can bring about. All 20 living hostages who have been brutally held by Hamas for 2 years were finally reunited with their beloved ones, including those who briefed the Security Council in this chamber. The hard-won ceasefire could also bring a long-awaited respite to Palestinians in Gaza. Many of them could finally return to where their homes once stood, as elevated levels of humanitarian aid began to flow based on UN system. The Republic of Korea strongly believes that this achievement must serve as the starting point to rebuild peace and stability in the region. We urge the parties to this conflict in Gaza to strictly abide by the agreement and faithfully engage in the negotiations to achieve the second phase of the ceasefire. Reiterating our clear condemnation of the terrorist attack by Hamas 2 years ago, we reaffirm our belief that, in accordance with the comprehensive plan to end the Gaza conflict, as well as the New York Declaration, Hamas must not serve any role in future governance of Gaza and must lay down its weapons. We also urge Hamas to exert all efforts to locate and return the bodies of the deceased hostages. And also Israel must also comply with its commitment, including complete suspension of all military operations, full entry of humanitarian aid through all available routes, and withdrawal to agreed lines. At the same time, the humanitarian work of UN agencies, including UNRWA, must be ensured as detailed in the recent ICJ advisory opinion. In this regard, the Republic of Korea expresses its grave concern over the incident on Sunday relating to the deadly airstrikes by IDF in Rafah, responding to attacks against it, and also gravely concerned about the public execution carried out by Hamas in Gaza. We again call on both parties to abide by a ceasefire agreement. To this end, as a member of the Security Council, the Republic of Korea would like to express its willingness to actively participate in any Council discussions to support the ceasefire and relevant arrangement, including the deployment of the International Stabilization Force based on the comprehensive plan. Mr. President, for the last 2 years, we witnessed a dangerous circle of escalation and violence sweeping across the region. Thus, we must seize this important moment to end the vicious circle of regional strife and open a path toward genuine peace and security. We believe that the two-state solution is the only possible way to ensure peace, stability, and dignity for all in the Middle East. In this respect, we stressed our firm position that establishment of settlement in occupied Palestinian territory has no legal validity and constitutes a flagrant violation under the international law. We call on Israel to cease all settlement activities and demolition of the Palestinian homes, and to take measures to punish the unjustifiable violence by settlers, including those targeting Palestinians participating in annual West Bank olive harvest. The Palestinian Authority should also do more to carry out its reform, and Israel must fulfill its obligation with regard to its relation with PA, including the transfer of the tax revenues. Mr. President, the horrific terrorist attack by Hamas in October 2023 ended up only deepening the unfathomable suffering of Palestinians and compounding the agony of both Israeli and Palestinians. The mass military response by Israel over the last 2 years, according to OCHA, is resulted to killing of more than 68,000 people in Gaza, including more than 20,000 children and more than 10,000 women, also show that military solution can never achieve sustainable peace. So we hope that through this catastrophic experience, all actors in the region can finally realize the indispensable value of coexistence and peace. I thank you.
Я благодарю представителя Республики Корея за его выступление. Сейчас предоставляю слово представителю Алжира.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the outset, I wish to thank Deputy Special Coordinator Al-Akbarov for his thoughtful and informative briefing. 2 years after enduring relentless bombardment, carnage, starvation, and the threat of ethnic cleansing and genocide, the Palestinian people in Gaza are beginning at last, to glimpse a moment of relief. It is a fragile moment, yet it carries within it a seed of hope. Hope for a life lived in dignity. Hope for a future built on justice. Hope for the realization of their legitimate right to statehood. In this regard, we welcome the tireless effort of the mediators, the United States, Egypt, Qatar, and Turkey, whose dedication helped bring about the ceasefire, release of the hostages, and exchange of Palestinian prisoners. We express our support for their continuing effort to preserve ceasefire and to ensure that humanitarian assistance reach every corner of Gaza without delay, without obstruction. We call on all parties to honor their commitments to maintain the ceasefire and to guarantee unhindered humanitarian access with the participation of credible humanitarian actors, including UNRWA, that is pivotal for the UN action. In this regard, we recall also the obligation of Israel, the occupying power, as reaffirmed in the advisory opinion issued yesterday by the International Court of Justice. Gazans need respite. They need time to heal. They need to rebuild their homes. They need to reopen their schools. They need to restore the rhythm of ordinary life. There, the scale of destruction is beyond imagination. The social and human toll is immense. Hundreds of thousands displaced, families shattered, children without classrooms, and unemployment at unprecedented levels. The reconstruction of Gaza must therefore become a collective mission. It requires the full mobilization of the international community, guided by solidarity, compassion, and vision of justice. Algeria will take its share in this endeavor, but rebuilding Gaza must not end with bricks and concrete. It must open a political horizon, a path leading toward a just and lasting peace, embodied in the establishment of an independent, a sovereign state of Palestine. Palestinian cannot continue to be overlooked or simply ignored. Mr. President, while attention is rightfully focused on Gaza, we cannot overlook the alarming development in the West Bank. Yesterday's vote in the Israeli Knesset to advance bill aimed at annexing the West Bank exposes once again, the colonial nature of the occupation. It represents a blatant attempt to legitimize settlements in flagrant violation of international law and also of relevant Security Council resolution. We strongly condemn these actions and call upon the international community, and in particularly this Council, to uphold its responsibility to safeguard the prospect for a just and viable two-state solution. Continuing settlement expansion, settler violence, and annexation measures are gravely endangering peace efforts and undermining the very basis of a future Palestinian state. These acts stand in defiance of international law and against the resolve of the global community, which are clearly reaffirmed its support for Palestinian statehood through an ever-growing wave of recognition. Mr. President, what is now required is the launch of a serious, credible, and time-bound peace process, one that leads without ambiguity, without delay, to the realization of the state of Palestine, returning to the statu quo before October 7 is not acceptable. Returning to the blockade is not acceptable. Returning to the denial of Palestinian rights is not acceptable. Impunity and disregard for international law are not acceptable. Justice, freedom, peace, and dignity for the Palestinian people are not only necessary, they are inevitable. I thank you.
Я благодарю представителя Алжира за его выступление. Сейчас предоставляю слово представителю Греции.
Thank you, President. And thank you, Deputy Special Coordinator Alvaro, for your briefing. At long last, A ceasefire is now in place in Gaza, and the hostages are now free. Under President Trump's leadership and with tremendous international engagement, the participation of the Greek Prime Minister in the Peace Summit in Egypt demonstrates Greece's important commitment in the day after developments. A positive momentum now exists in Gaza. The world's gaze is now upon the full implementation of the peace plan. We call on all parties to fulfill their commitments, allowing for the establishment of a lasting ceasefire and the return of the remains of the hostages. This should pave the way to a comprehensive political process. The international community should ensure the Palestinians have full ownership in all aspects of the agreement, be it recovery, reconstruction, and governance. Meanwhile, the UN and its humanitarian partners must continue to scale up their operations on the ground, as outlined in their 60-day plan. Additional food parcels are being distributed and additional bakeries are now functional. However, far greater volumes are needed. We therefore call for the full, safe, and unimpeded flow of humanitarian aid and supplies into Gaza, as well as the restoration of full access to potable water and electricity for the civilian population. In this regard, we look forward to the reopening of the Rafah border crossing, which can greatly facilitate the inflow of humanitarian aid at scale across the Strip. The role of the UN and its agencies remains crucial and irreplaceable, as confirmed by the advisory opinion of the ICJ issued yesterday. Notably, the role of UNRWA, toward which Greece has consistently contributed and has recently increased its contribution as it advances along the implementation of the Colonna recommendations. Similarly, we support initiatives such as the Cyprus-led Almathea Maritime Humanitarian Corridor. They can effectively contribute to the direct delivery of humanitarian aid complementing land routes. Greece stands ready to contribute to the reconstruction of Gaza and the flow of humanitarian aid, as was stated by our foreign minister during his meeting with his Palestinian counterpart in Athens. At the same time, incidents over the past weekend have demonstrated that the ceasefire is fragile. Diplomacy has delivered. It is now up to the parties to uphold their obligations and demonstrate caution and restraint. The envisaged US-led International Stabilization Force provides for a promising prospect in support of peace. As the custodian of international peace and security, this Council is the appropriate body to mandate this force. Greece will engage constructively in relevant consultations on the next steps. President, the time has come to forge a path towards lasting peace and security based on the two-state solution. The international community reaffirmed its overwhelming support for the two-state solution at the high-level conference co-chaired by France and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia last month. Our sight is now fixed on the activation of the peace plan's second phase, one which can establish sustainable peace and prosperity in the region. We rejoiced at the sight of freed Israeli hostages embracing their loved ones. We now expect Hamas to comply fully with the terms of the agreement and proceed with the immediate return of all the deceased adhering to the terms. Under the peace plan, Hamas is given a chance to decommission the weapons and leave Gaza. The recent appalling footage of brutal public executions committed by Hamas, as well as the skirmishes against rival factions in Gaza, make the issue of Hamas disarmament most imperative. It can have no role, direct or indirect, in the governance of Gaza. A viable alternative to its devastating rule in Gaza is sorely needed. A reformed and empowered Palestinian Authority, which Greece fully supports, is an indispensable and credible partner for peace. President, despite these developments, we cannot deviate our attention from the West Bank. According to the UN Human Rights Office, there is a clear increase of severe attacks by armed extremist settlers in the West Bank, 2 weeks into the start of the 2025 harvest. Settlement expansion and settler violence, including against Christian communities, are causes for grave concern. We thus reiterate our call for the preservation of the status quo of the holy sites in the old city of Jerusalem. We further stress that announcements on the construction of additional settlements which undermine the two-state solution must be reversed. In conclusion, President, the Middle East, a region vibrant in its diversity and rich in its history, seems to be turning a new page. This Council needs to uphold its role and responsibility in seeing that regional peace is established, so that the peoples of the region may finally enjoy a future of stability, dignity, and hope. I thank you.
Я благодарю представителя Греции за ее выступление. Сейчас предоставляю слово представителю Франции.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Président, je remercie tout d'abord le coordonnateur spécial